And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, back to the LA County Board of Supervisors deliberating, doing something about street takeovers and sideshows. Holly Mitchell's going on way too long, and Janice Hahn's not having any of it. So in order to get her to wrap up, Janice Hahn tries to everything she says.
To cast a wide net and have a broad tent. To really try to come up with solutions that are real, relevant today, and will work. But again, the motion actually includes an expectation that during the symposium, they'll talk about a legal venue if we think that's an option. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
She's 5 seconds away from telling her to shut up.
Well, she would give her a warning first.
That's your final warning.
I saw something during the break that just blew my mind.
What's that?
Okay. You know, at In-N-Out Burger, and of course fast food is all over the news right now because of the deal that was just struck in Sacramento regarding the minimum wage for fast food employees. So, fast food is showing up in all of my social media feeds, which means I'm starving.
I'm sure that has nothing to do with the fact that you go to McDonald's every day for coffee.
No, nothing. So, you know, at In-N-Out, there's the menu, and then there's the secret menu, and the secret menu has more items than the regular menu.
Yes, you've got the animal style, you've got the protein style, you got the Flying Dutchman. There's a whole, you do a Neapolitan shake, you can get green chilies on your burger. There's a lot of things that can be done, and I've done them all.
The last time I heard about something that I didn't know existed on that secret menu was the root beer float. Did you know they can do a root beer float there?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I didn't know about that. I just saw something seconds ago that is an item I have never heard of before on the secret menu. You know you can get a burger protein style there where it's wrapped in lettuce and there's no bun, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so that's if you're counting carbs. Well, apparently you can also do that with whole grilled onions. Instead of having a bun, instead of having lettuce on the outside, you can have 2 whole grilled onions essentially as your bun.
That's right. That is the new thing. It's going viral. It is pretty much a protein bomb.
I may have to try that.
It seems incredibly messy, but it does look damn good every time I see that on Instagram.
Seeing that during the break is going to wreck me for the rest of the day.
Sometimes the only way you can satisfy that demon is drive into the drive-thru as soon as 2:59 hits.
I have a feeling that's where I'm going to end up. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a columnist at the Southern California News Group, which is where my column appears. And, of course, that's the LA Daily News, the OC Register, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and most importantly, Randy,
the Redlands Daily Facts.
She's also the host of the Howard Jarvis Radio Show, which airs Monday nights right here on AM 790 KABC. You can follow her on Twitter at Susan_Shelley. Susan Shelley, welcome.
Thank you, John. Great to be with you.
All right. Since we talked about fast food before you came on, I say we just stick with the theme here for a second, because in Sacramento, they were talking about increasing the minimum wage for fast food workers. It looks like we're not going to go to the ballot with an increase, that a deal was cut to circumvent that process, which would be very costly, and the fast food industry would probably end up losing anyway, given the politics of the state. But we're seeing this push to automate so many jobs in fast food. It used to be that the Coca-Cola was filled by someone behind the desk. Now you fill it yourself. You used to order from someone at the desk. Now you order on your phone or you order at a kiosk. They constantly are finding new ways to eliminate jobs and replace them with machines. I can't imagine, given this increase, that won't accelerate that process.
Oh, it has to. It has to accelerate the process of people having their hours cut and jobs going away. This just makes all that machinery more cost effective. And as we know, the cost of technology gradually comes down and the cost of labor gradually goes up. And where they meet is that even these low-paid service jobs are going to go away, which is really, it's heartbreaking for the people of California that there is so little opportunity for people to get started in a career or started in a job or on any kind of track to financial self-sufficiency, because this government is driving business underwater until they all drown. It's painful to watch.
Well, I specifically feel sorry for the younger kids because they've really had it rough. We shut down the schools. We shut down the economy. We kept them away from their friends for years. So they're all screwed up mentally because of that. Now we have these low-skilled jobs that allow them to earn a little extra money, understand responsibility, get their feet wet in private business, and really start their lives as an adult. And so many of those jobs are being taken away by machines. I don't see all the teenagers that you used to see working in these jobs, like in the 1980s, the 1990s. You'd go into a McDonald's, all you saw was the local high school kids in there working, and then you had someone a little older who was the manager. That's going away.
Well, yes, and if they raise the wages to $20 or $22 an hour, you're going to see more adults who need to pick up extra money to pay the rent. You're going to see more adults working those jobs part-time, and that's going to ace out the teenagers also. So it's been really cruel and really rough, and the opportunities are being decimated in California because of policy choices. You know, if you're a franchisee in the fast food industry, you're a small business person. Not everybody is the McDonald's corporation. They are individual owners of one or two restaurants, and they're small businesses. And they're being hit with these mandates from Sacramento to increase all their costs. And people don't realize that when you increase the wage, you also increase all those percentages on the payroll taxes, all the cost for unemployment insurance and workers' comp and everything else, the Social Security tax, the Medicare tax, everything that the employer pays that the employee never sees. There's enough taken out that the employee does see, but then there's all this other money that the employer has to pay. And it all goes up when they force the minimum wage higher. And there's only so much you can charge for a burger, even if it's got caramelized onions on either side of it. There's only so much you can charge for it.
Okay, I've got another fast food topic for you because yesterday McDonald's announced that they have a pilot program that will be imposed on their locations on the Pacific Coast and in the state of Illinois. And that pilot program would remove the soda machines or the ability to fill your cup up yourself in the restaurants. They're also eliminating the dollar food items from their menu. They say it's to enhance the customer experience, but I don't know how it enhances the customer experience to not be able to get more soda if you want more soda, or not be able to get something for $1 if it's being sold for $1. The real reason that they're doing this is because the homeless crisis is completely out of control in places like San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and of course Chicago. Additionally, crime and theft is out of control. They don't want people lingering around their restaurants. They want you to show up, pick up your food, and leave. And they don't want you to cause any problems while you're in there. But because these cities are out of control, and because a lot of these police departments won't even show up when it comes to low-level crime, it's really nothing but liability for them. But instead of going to war with these states, instead of going to war with these city councils and demanding that they arrest people for breaking the law, or demanding that they do something about the homeless encampments and the homeless crisis that's exploding, instead of having the fight, they just eliminate things that their paying customers like so that they take that off the table. They don't have to worry about one of their customers having a negative interaction with a criminal or a homeless person. Why is it that they always run out of bounds instead of risk taking the hit and fixing these cities and fixing these states that are broken right now?
Well, that's a really good question. For individual business owners, I know they do fight back, and I've heard from some of them who are on the phone to all the government officials screaming about where is code enforcement? Where is law enforcement? Where is the health department? Where's the sanitation department? How is this being allowed? All of the things that are too gross to describe on the air. How is this being allowed right outside restaurants, right outside businesses? They do try, but where are the larger Sacramento interests? Where are the big business groups that could back candidates, that could target incumbents, that could do ballot measures? They are always the ones who back away. They always seem to be afraid that something worse will follow if they challenge the incumbents. And I think that's not working. You know, you can see the evidence everywhere that strategy, while at one time it may have been productive, at this moment they're just getting screwed. And they have to take, I think, a much more warrior attitude, because when it's war, both sides get to fight. And right now only one side is fighting.
Why is it that if you're talking about some trade deal with China, if you're talking about some regulation when it comes to agriculture, if you're talking about something regarding healthcare, all of these companies are more than willing to open up their checkbook and do whatever it takes to get what they want? And they will step on toes if that's what it requires. They will get engaged in the process. They will make friends and develop enemies. But when it comes to something as fundamental as public safety and homelessness, they're not willing to behave the same way that they would for a trade deal they want.
Well, I guess they're afraid of bad publicity. I guess they don't know how to respond when someone says you're mean and cruel and rich and you don't care about the poor. And what they need to be saying is this is not a solution for anybody. This is not good for the people who are on the sidewalks. This is not good for the customers and the small businesses. This is not humane. This is not healthy. This is not a policy. And really, you have to find a way to find the words to respond to people who call you names. And I think a lot of business people and business organizations in particular, they would rather avoid the controversy and the conflict than engage in it and come back with the kind of communications that make the argument in their own interests.
How much of this do you think is racial? And I say that because all of this started, the restaurants just rolling over to local government and state government, when Starbucks got in trouble, when they enforced the rule that if you weren't a paying customer, they would ask you to move on. And they did that to two black people in one of their locations, and the story went viral. The story went all over the place, and Starbucks changed their policies as a result. And now Starbucks, for example, they're even worse than McDonald's. If one of their locations has a problem with crime or homelessness, they'll just shut it down. They'll just shut down the location, and no one can have access to a Starbucks in that particular neighborhood. How much of this do you think is racial with McDonald's and the other big companies?
Well, that's certainly something everybody's afraid to be called racist. That is toxic to your business. That would set off international boycotts. They are terrified of that. And this goes back quite a ways. This goes back at least as far as that situation with Toyota. I don't know if you remember this, but they had some subcontractor who created some sort of like a cocktail napkin that had a picture of a person with a gold tooth. And it was declared by some group to be racist. And Toyota ended up paying a lot of money to the various groups that were demanding that they pay a lot of money, otherwise they'd be called racist. And that was sort of a template, I think, that you could find something that wasn't even considered by most people to be racial in any way, and yet the company was coerced into certain hiring contracts, it was I think tens of millions of dollars of cash and prizes for people who were threatening to call the company racist. And if that's sort of like a hostage drama. If you pay ransom, you will be kidnapped again.
We're speaking with Susan Shelley, who's a columnist at the Southern California News Group. You can follow her on Twitter at Susan_Shelley. Susan, the state legislature is meeting right now. They, of course, love and live to regulate every aspect of our lives. The most recent issue that they're now kicking around up there is requiring that everyone have air conditioning in the state of California. Currently, we're required to have heat, but we're not required to have air conditioning, as many people live by the coast or they live in areas that are cool, you live in the mountains or in San Francisco, you may not even need air conditioning. But if the California state legislature gets their way, everyone would be required to have it. Why is it that they have to feel the need to regulate this? If you want AC, you can go out and get it. If you want to rent a unit that has air conditioning available, that's one of the things that they list in the ads. Why do they have to force everyone to put it in if they don't want it?
That's a really good question, because this fights with their so-called climate goals, where supposedly running your air conditioning is bad for the climate and using these different kinds of refrigerants is bad for the climate. And certainly it's not good for the electric grid if we ramp up with more air conditioning and more electric cars, and we're on the verge of blackouts every summer as it is. So that if they're not making any accommodation for the electrical needs, and they're not making any accommodation to help people pay those bills for air conditioning, I'm not sure what they're doing. They're just going to mandate that people put it in, and then if they don't use it and they die, it's on them because they can't afford it. That's kind of crazy.
You know, it's funny. If you talk to any of the old-timers who were elected in Sacramento a while back, they will tell you that what ruined the budget process more than anything was bringing air conditioning to Sacramento. That in the days before air conditioning, the legislature knew they had to come up with a budget that worked, because if they didn't, they'd have to stick around later and they would absolutely be a puddle of sweat because there was no air conditioning in Sacramento. And the minute they came up with air conditioning, that's when every budget came in late.
Well, maybe we could sneak into the Capitol and turn it off.
That is a grand idea.
Get the Freon out of the tubes and get the legislature back to work.
Susan Shelley, columnist at the Southern California News Group and host of the Howard Jarvis Radio Show, which airs Monday nights right here on AM 790 KABC. You can find her on Twitter at Susan_Shelley. Susan Shelley, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, even though 3 o'clock is right around the corner, if you want to keep listening to us, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube as well. Subscribe to the playlist. There are so many different ways to listen. It is so easy to do. Anybody can figure out how to download this podcast. Barbara Ferrer, you can download this podcast, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, she can't do it, but you can figure it out.
Now, we spent some time in the last segment talking to Susan Shelley about fast food, which is a subject near and dear to our hearts. But, Randy, if you want to be around us and food, you can do that on Friday.
That's right, because this Friday, John and I are going to be broadcasting live at the Gelson's in Century City. The Gelson's in Century City has their own wine bar, so come on down, have lunch with us. We're going to be there from noon to 3. Grab a burger. I hear it's incredible. Poke nachos also look fantastic, but they got a whole menu. We're going to have a great time together, doing the show live, taking pictures, hanging out, doing some giveaways. Come down this Friday, noon to 3, the Gelson's in Century City. It's going to be a heck of a Jimmy Buffett Friday.
Remember back in the day, Randy, when we used to vote in odd years for city elections?
Oh, where we get 7% turnout?
Yeah. Turnout was lower, but that's much better because that means the people who were voting were the people who were paying attention, as opposed to everyone having a say on something they don't pay attention to.
Well, if that's true, how did we get Eric Garcetti twice?
That's very true. I guess we received things on both ends.
I received things on both ends.
But it just didn't feel big enough.
Well, we changed it so that more people would vote, and the government got worse. Other states vote in odd years, including the states of New Jersey and the state of Virginia. In Virginia, it's a purple state right now, where there's a Republican governor and I think a Democratic-controlled Senate and a Republican-controlled House of Delegates. But the margins are very, very slim. So both parties are spending a ton of money trying to get control of that state legislature. There's only a handful of competitive races, and all of the money, or most of the money, I guess I should say, are being dumped into those contests. In one of those contests, there is quite a controversy going on right now, where the Democratic candidate in a competitive Virginia House district denounced reports that she and her husband had performed sex acts on a pornographic live streaming website, describing the sharing of those videos as, quote, the worst gutter politics. Her name is Susanna Gibson. She's a nurse practitioner, and she's running against Republican David Owen, who's a retired home builder in the 57th District. The existence of the sexually explicit videos, which were first reported by the Washington Post on Monday, has injected a highly sensitive issue into one of the most competitive races in the state. She's saying that it's out of bounds to bring up the pornographic videos or to share them on social media. And she's also saying that it's illegal because it violates the state's revenge porn laws.
That's right. If you want to see those videos lawfully, you got to subscribe to their OnlyFans.
Hey, a girl's got to make a buck. But here's the thing, though. They weren't surreptitiously obtained. It would be like if Arnold Schwarzenegger's running for governor and you take clips from Kindergarten Cop or you take clips from Last Action Hero and you play them. You may not like the movies. Did anyone like Last Action Hero? I don't know.
I mean, I was 8 and I liked it.
I know you're a Jingle All the Way partisan.
Saw that one in the theater.
But if that was your job and that's what you did, then I guess it's relevant. I guess it could be to some people if they're evaluating whether or not you should be the governor of their state. If your job was to appear in pornographic films, I don't know why you'd get upset if people saw it.
You should own it.
Yeah.
That's right. Me and my husband live stream for cash, and you can subscribe too.
Now, I wonder if this was just a hobby on the side, like they're exhibitionists or something, or were they actually bringing in real money? Because if they were actually bringing in real money, and that's how they pay their bills, and that's how they, I guess, support their lifestyle, maybe that's what's financing some of this campaign.
Hey, they're small business people.
That's right.
Not everything is small, but their business is.
Giving till it hurts, as they say. But she's acting like she's the victim of some kind of smear campaign. I understand it's embarrassing to have these videos. And on my social media, it seems like every time I click refresh, it's a different scene from one of their videos. They're attractive people. But when you produce these videos and you put them in the public domain, it's not like these were stolen from their phone from OkCupid and it was meant for private consumption, but you put it on a public website and you make money off of it. I don't necessarily know if you could then turn around and claim to be a victim. Now, here's a question. Would having a background in pornographic films disqualify someone for being an elected? Because if you're going to be an elected official, you're going to have to know how to act at certain points. And if you've appeared in a number of pornographic films, then you have some background in acting. And you probably sound a whole lot like Gavin Newsom at times. You think Newsom would be able to get elected governor if he and Kimberly Guilfoyle were putting out pornographic films back in the 90s?
I mean, that bearskin rug picture was practically pornographic.
Yeah, practically. But if OnlyFans were around back then, we probably would have seen some more skin.
Definitely of her.
How about Jerry Brown? Can you imagine him naked on the internet?
I really can't. The good news is anybody that listened to the last segment and was convinced that they needed to go to In-N-Out Burger today just heard your comment about a naked Jerry Brown, and they've lost their appetite.
I, honest to God, don't know if that would impact my vote. A lot of people consume pornography. I mean, that's practically why the internet was invented. In fact, I think that was why the internet was invented.
Hey, these are people that deliver. They give the people what they want.
If they were to go into office and vote the way I want them to vote, I don't think it would impact my vote. I really don't. If they'd vote the opposite of how I want them to vote, then I'd probably use it against them. You know, people are weird. I was reading this journal article recently on how people come to conclusions, how people vote the way they do. And one of the things that these political scientists tested is whether or not people vote in their own economic self-interest. Typically, that's how we assume people vote when they go into the ballot box. And what they found was that more often than not, that's not how people vote. In isolated cases, it is true. For Prop 13, for example, anyone who is regarded as a quote-unquote taxpayer was more inclined to vote for Prop 13. That means you're not retired. That means you're not on welfare. That means you're not a government employee. Anyone outside of those categories was extremely predisposed to vote for Prop 13 because they benefited economically from it. But when you look at any other subject, your political ideology or your partisanship or some other issue gets you to vote the way that you vote. And what you do is you vote the way that you vote, and then you find evidence that proves that you're right. But you make the decision before you look at the evidence. That's kind of how it works. If this woman, who apparently is very prolific in the online porn world, were to go into the legislature and vote how I would like her to vote down the line, yeah, I'd vote for her. I don't care. Wouldn't hold it against her. You think you could do it, Randy?
I think there are plenty of elected officials who have been doing this for a very long time. We just haven't found their accounts yet.
You have any ideas?
I don't want to get sued today. I'm not Tucker Carlson with nothing to lose.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Well, Alex writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com to remind you and me about something that we totally forgot in the last segment. We almost had a porn star as governor of the state of California. Let's not forget Mary Carey, who ran in the 2003 recall and the 2021 recall.
That's right. I forgot that Mary Carey ran for governor. And her porn background was not used against her in that campaign.
No. She was upfront about it.
And, you know, I thought that her policy towards the budget was quite unique.
What was that?
That she would fix the California budget hole with crisp new $1 bills. Just don't ask her where she got them. And Randy, on Friday, you and I are going to be in Century City.
That's right, the Gelsons in Century City at the Westfield Century City Shopping Center. They've got a wine bar there. We're going to be there from noon to 3, so come on down, grab lunch with us, grab a drink. It is Friday, so enjoy yourself. Noon to 3 this Friday. See you there.
You going to have a glass of wine during the show?
I might do a tasting, but I don't think I'm going to do a full glass of wine because I'm a responsible broadcaster.
They could bring you something in one of those red Solo cups and you can pound it like you're at a frat party.
Could do that, but I think I'm a little classier than that. Back in the KLSX days, definitely.
All right, let's go to the phones, Randy.
Let's go to Dale in Long Beach. Dale, you're on the John Phillips Show. Hello.
Hello. When Holly Mitchell was going to Yale, I guess they didn't teach you when you steal somebody's car. It's called Grand Theft Auto.
I think that was Hilda Solis, but point taken.
Oh, okay.
Played that video game.
No, they just, they take people's cars that aren't theirs. You could hear Oma say stealing, but she didn't want to say it.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, when you take somebody else's property, that's called stealing.
You were just borrowing it, like you borrowed their catalytic converter, too.
Oh, yeah, and then did they tell you they were going to take it and do Brodies and burnouts all over the intersection before they took it, though?
True story. A friend of mine would mentor kids from dangerous parts of town, usually reformed gang members. And one of them apparently had a relative that died, so my friend had to take him to the funeral. And I don't know if you've ever seen pictures from a gang member's funeral, Randy.
I have not.
Okay. What they did at this particular funeral is they put guns in the casket with the decedent, and then at the cemetery, the other gang members would do donuts and would burn rubber at the cemetery.
Oh, my.
I don't think the hearse was involved, but the other cars. At some point, we have to get invited to a gang member's funeral.
I don't know about that one.
I feel like you and I would enjoy experiencing that.
I think you can go settle to that. You let me know how it is.
All right, that's going to do it for us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at noon for another live and local edition of The John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.